Yeah, you're right. Kevin Stevens was a meathead. What's going on, guys? The NHL betting market for January the 22nd, 2021. We're going to start off with the Rangers Penguins. 680 bets in this game. 7 p.m. Eastern time. Puck drop. Pens open minus 138. Bet up to minus 141. 50% of bettors are on the Penguins. 68% of the money, however, is on the Rangers, and the line has moved in favor of the Penguins on the money line. So as always, let's move over to the puck line on the far right, and the line has moved on the puck line in favor of the Rangers, which is interesting. Minus 183 to minus 185. 71% of bettors have helped push that puck line juice up 2 points. However, 94% of the money has been placed on the Penguins to win by 2 or more. Fat Guy, this is a juicy opportunity for the books for the Penguins to win by 1.
1 goal. Like, that seems pretty reasonable, does it not? Only 680 bets, of course, which is interesting considering the amount of volume I'm just seeing from the next game. The Penguins by 1 seems to be would be quite the win for the books, considering they are exposed on the Penguins on the puck line, and they are exposed on the Rangers on the money line. I would imagine that the money line money is a lot more than the puck line, but 96% of 10,000 compared to, I can't exactly do the math of, let's say 30,000, which would be 68, 19,000 or 20,700. You know what I mean? Like, considering the odd set on both of them, it is interesting, and perhaps this is balanced, but they do get a free roll, because if this is balanced, they get a free roll, which means they'll win a guaranteed commission on all results except Penguins by 1, which they'll win both. The majority of both, not all of them, obviously. The 32% of the Penguins money line would win, and the 6% puck line bettors would win on the Rangers. But if they get the Penguins to win by 1, they would win all of the markets less those 2 payees, which are the smallest. So that's why I like to try and forecast based on what the most likely event that would profit the book, and that is Penguins by 1.
And then the OU, we don't get the full picture of the market because we don't have the money percentages, which does suck. The under open 6.5 minus 110. It's still at 6.5. The juice is pushed towards the under to minus 113, despite 73% of bets being on the over, but we have no clue. Without the money percentages, it's really, really hard to make any inferences.
Absolutely.
On to the Sabres Capitals, 7 p.m. Eastern time start. As Fat Guy noted when we started the video, 1,097 bets early on in a Sabres Capitals game. I would not have expected that.
No.
Caps open plus 108. They've been bet up to plus 101, so almost a pick 'em. 50% of bettors, 52% of the money on the Capitals. Not a lot to talk about there on the money line. So let's take a look at the puck line. The Capitals open plus 1.5 at minus 222. They've been bet up to plus 1.5 minus 236. 72% of bettors and 63% of the money is on the Capitals puck line. I'm just going to go out and say it, Fat Guy. This might be the most boring NHL moneyline puck line market we've seen, because there's nothing. They're taking money equal to the money line. They're taking money equal to the puck line.
Roughly. I think it's a few percentage points in favor of exposure on the Capitals, but I mean it would be micro percentages if anything. So it's not really a big deal. It's like you said, it's chalk.
You're triggering me by using words like micro, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
The OU for this game, it opened at 5.5. The over minus 116 is what it opened at. It's currently at minus 122. 84% of bettors are on the over. However, 97% of the money has been bet on the under, despite the juice moving in favor of the over. So that's weird, because why would they try to incentivize people to bet the under 5.5 with the plus 108 juice if they
are receiving all the money? Standard stuff. Why? That's why that figure is dubious in 97%. I got to be honest. Again, these are third-party figures we are reporting, because, I mean, it's not like the book sends us an email with the handle, the amount of bets, and the distribution of those bets exactly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that is, they are incentivizing the under. So this is contrarian theory would heavily support taking the over. I just don't know if there is value at that 122 juice line.
And then on to the next game, which is Edmonton Toronto, 7 p.m. Eastern time start, 794 bets. Oilers open as plus 132 underdogs on the road. They've been bet down to plus 125 underdogs, 38% of bettors. However, only 11% of the money is on the Oilers money line. So huge exposure on the Maple Leafs. Let's take a look at the puck line, where there continues to be exposure on the Maple Leafs, actually even more than there is on the money line as far as percentages are concerned. We don't know about handles, but the Maple Leafs minus 1.5, plus 150, has been bet up to plus 178 despite receiving 99% of the money. That doesn't make sense, but they have only received 12% of the bets. So this looks like an interesting opportunity that there might be some value on the Edmonton Oilers as far as markets are concerned.
The only thing that's a bummer is you have to be skeptical about that 99% figure on the puck line as far as money goes, because 12% making up that much money, that doesn't jive. Even if it is, there's 794 bets, which is more than some. Now, I mean, it's probably about average, maybe slightly above. From how we've been doing this, Big Red might have a better pulse on what the average bets at this time should be. But I mean, that's the figure. If I really had a solid figure and I could believe in it, then I would probably be all in. Well, not all in, but I would be a strong unit play perhaps on the Oilers in a variety of markets. I don't like paying minus 200 juice, so 125 would be the line for me. But the dubious nature of that money percentage could change. Mind you, if you're using the same third party we do, that could change and give us a clear picture closer to puck drop. So this is something I'll be monitoring to see if there is contrarian value on the Edmonton Oilers.
The only thing I will say is that there is exposure on the Maple Leafs, both on the money line and the puck line, which is something that we don't always see. It's usually it usually oscillates. There's usually money on one side on the money line, and usually there's money on the other side of the puck line. So it's interesting to note that they're
line
taking
up.
double
The stars
exposure.
aligning.
Exactly. And also, anyone who's checked out any of our live streams, I think would be hard-pressed to say that I have a stronger pulse than you, fat guy. On to the OU, which opened at 6.5. The under was at minus 114 at open. The total goals pushed down, though, to 6 currently, but there is heavier juice on the over at minus 109. 62% of bets placed have been placed on the over. 84% of the money, though, however, has been bet on the under.
This is a lot more natural of a line movement, I feel like. As far as as bet, it's a lot more. It's standard. This feels standard.
It feels standard, and it's one of those things where at a square better showing up right now and looking at this over and seeing 6 goals at minus 109. I'll take that. That's my guess. That's what this market is right now. It's going to get people. Those bet percentages are going to continue to grow on the over, and the money percentages will probably slightly creep up. I'm sure they're still going to take a little bit more exposure. It looks like some sharps have really hit that under hard when it was probably at 6.5. And now they're just trying to encourage bettors to take that over at 6. On to the next game, which is the Detroit Red Wings at the Chicago Blackhawks. 718 bets in this game so far. The line has moved slightly in favor of the Red Wings from plus 121 to plus 120. You guys can also see the adjustment in juice, you can say, from opening to the current money line. 60%
coming down on both ends.
Yeah, that's what she said. 60% of bets on the Blackhawks, 81% of the money on the Blackhawks. And like always, Fat Guy, we're going to take a look at the puck line to see if it tells us a different story here, considering that heavy money is on the Blackhawks on the money line. However, there's heavy money on the Red Wings puck line, and it's gone from plus 1.5 to minus 191 to minus 193. 49% of bettors, 86% of the money. So we have a Vegas middling opportunity here where the Blackhawks could win by 1, and that would not be a good result for the books.
Because I mean, Red Wings are 1.5 point dogs. They got all the money. They probably have a balancing act here, but Blackhawks winning by 1. That looks bad here, and I'm wondering. That's one of those things. Is that the least Maybe it's not. I mean, because technically 81% of the money, that wouldn't be the end of the world, right? Because the one thing is to make this assumption, you'd need to know the handle specifically on the money line and puck line. I think they're going to be okay, though. But it is interesting to know.
Well, like, there is what's interesting about this game is that for the Blackhawks to win by 1, just doing some rough math in my head, it's probably about 24%. So they're essentially taking a 24% chance that they could lose on both of these. And then there's a much larger chance that they could win both on the money line market and on the puck line market.
Yeah.
So it's
So I mean, who knows how much exposure it
one or the
actually is, right? And where it's tilted. But is Big Rye, that's a very interesting point here, is that maybe they feel Blackhawks by 1 is such a, I mean, you're obviously using very crude math. They have way better data, but your data is like at worst, what, 8% off? So maybe it's an 18% chance that the Blackhawks only win by 1, or the Red Wings perhaps win this game. So very interesting. But the weird thing about that, though, is Blackhawks winning by 1 doesn't seem unreasonable when you compare it to an over-under market of 6. Do you know what I mean? I mean, maybe for Blackhawks 4-2, like that might be a thing. I could understand that. But it's very, very interesting here, Big Rye. Can we take a look at the OU market?
Yeah, it opened at 6 with the under priced at -112. It's still at 6. The under now is -111. So it looks like the juice just adjusted, or did it push down? Either way, it hasn't really changed at all. 64% of bets on the under.
Yeah, so perhaps they are taking exposure on the under, so maybe they need an over. That makes a bit more sense, right? Because if they need a Blackhawks to not win by 1 goal, the over is going to be their friend, right? Because you got to remember, the higher the score, the more iterations of the score, right? So that means there's more results in the Blackhawks not winning by 1, the Blackhawks winning by 2, 3, so on and so forth, and the Red Wings winning by 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. So it would favor the owner over technically to take a position like this, because they don't really correlate that well on an under, considering the combinations of scores. But then you have to go into the weighting of those combinations, which is a whole nother thing. Math is your friend and your enemy, depending on how you apply it.
And another interesting thing to note is that we've noticed that there's a much heavier trend for the public to bet overs. And so you'll notice every other game we have 66%, 82%, 67%, 84%. I think this is the only game on the docket where more of the public are betting the under, which is always interesting to note because it is different than the other games. What that means, we don't know. On to the next game, though. Sharks versus the Wild. 567 bets so far on this game. 8 p.m. Eastern time start. The Wild open at -162. They've been bet up to -165. 54% of bettors and 82% on the money is on the Wild to win this game outright. However, Sharks puck line opened +1.5, -167. It's been bet up to -174. 84% of bets have been placed on the Sharks. Unfortunately, we don't have the money percentages for the puck line as of now. But this is another one of those games where the Sharks, well, really, from what we can tell, they just need a Sharks win.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I mean, well, the one issue with that though is we don't know the money percentage on the puck line. Like that we can't really draw too much if we don't know that figure, right? Because that really tells us a whole picture. Maybe it's going to come out at a different time, but I don't really want to speculate if I don't have that number, because I can't tell. I can't even draw inferences about the handle on either side, which would tell me a lot about exposure. So that figure missing is really difficult and unfortunate.
Yeah, and the only thing that would adjust that is the Sharks would have to have a ton of money on them on the puck line, which is possible. It's not that it's not possible, but the Sharks would have to have like 90% or more probably of the money on their side
roughly
to make this different. But this
again,
is
we're making assumptions of the handle. Yeah,
we're just going to stay away. On to the OU for this game. It opened 5.5. The over was -110. It's been bet up to -118. 84% of bets have been placed on the over, helping push this line up. Fat Guy, your thoughts?
Yeah, we're missing that money percentage. That really dampers me. I wanna dive in, sink my teeth in like the Sharks of San Jose. But when you don't have the money percentage, it makes things a little bit differently because it's 84% of bet volume. We can assume it probably has more money on the over, considering that not only the juice shifted upwards, it has 84% of the betting public, but how much of the money, right? Like, I would imagine that the dollars per person are more on the under, which would make sense because most Joes bet overs, especially in this NHL market this early season. There has been a trend towards them, whereas under, that seems to be a pro maneuver, especially when you're getting a plus money, a plus 105. I can understand. I just don't know with the betting, the betting dollars wagered, so it does hurt things a little bit as far as that lapse in information. But it does make, they are making the under looking attractive. Maybe they're balancing. Maybe there's more at play there. But without that money figure, I can't put a stamp on it.
And then on to the Predators Stars game, 718 bets, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time start. The Stars opened at minus 103. They've been bet up to minus 113. 44% of bets and 20% of the money is on the Dallas Stars, who are making their debut for this season. I don't believe they've played a game yet. On to the puck line just to see if there's any correlation. The Stars open plus 1.5 at minus 245. That juice is pushed up to minus 272. 34% of bettors and 86% of the money is on the Stars puck line. So some assumptions I think are safe to make, Fat Guy, and these are they could be completely wrong because we have to guess. But my guess is that there's more money being bet on the money line.
Yes.
There's also more exposure for 80% of the money on a plus 103 than there is on 86% of the money on minus 272.
I would agree.
So the Stars
you
to
say
win.
guess, but you're being a little bit humble there. We have a lot strong indications that everything you said there is relatively accurate.
And the so the Stars winning this game is the best result for the books.
Well, winning the game by one. Winning the game.
It doesn't. They could win by whatever.
Matter.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
I guess
matter
that's true.
because
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
They're underdogs at home on the puck line.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. Yeah, that's probably best. It is an oscillating market though. We're seeing that so often in the NHL, right? Whereas the Edmonton game is just more, once I get that figure, I'm really like,
yeah.
Pardon me, sorry?
I said, yeah, it's the Edmonton game. It just sticks out when you compare it
way,
to a lot
way
of the other
more,
markets.
right? Whereas this, we're trying to come up with scenarios on how we can get value, and without those market heuristics, which are very difficult to understand, it's hard to make that type of inference on if there is value on the Stars to win this game, because again, we don't know the handle. If we knew the handle on this stuff, God, it would make life so much easier. But why would the book give that out, like on any specific game? Because that's a recipe to carve them up, right? So very difficult to ascertain, but that's what we do every day to try and better understand. I think Big Rise inference is probably accurate. It's just I'm not sure that there's value necessarily on the Stars' victory.
This OU market is really interesting because it opened at 5.5. The under is at minus 110. It's been bet down to minus 114. 33% of bettors and 91% of the money is on the under. So the question I have for you, Fat Guy, is there's only 718 bets. There's 91% of the money on the OU, but this juice has only moved from minus 110 to minus 114. Like, is there just not a lot of money on this game, or is this just almost like a kind of like a red flag? Like, why haven't they pushed that line more, or even pushed it down to 5 goals to encourage more money on the over?
5 is so low, though. Wouldn't you just do 5.5 with bigger juice? I would imagine not 4 points, right? That is so interesting. And another thing, too, is it's 718 bets, which is a little bit stronger, right? Like, considering the timing of it. Obviously, You're going to see the Avalanche Ducks at 870, Avalanche being a premier team in the NHL. So I can understand that. But, I mean, 91% on the under, you just don't see that. Because sometimes this is the way it works. You want to go with early sharp money because the public hasn't bet yet. And then the closing lines, you want to go with contrarian theory and betting against the public. So Big Rise more positing a theory about the timing, more or less, right? Like, are they just putting out a bad number here at 5.5 minus 114? and sharps have capitalized on it, or they just perhaps this is their way of balancing. They leave it at this number because they are incentivizing the over, and public money will flow and it'll just naturally even itself out. It's one of those things. So you should take a snapshot in your mind of this, or perhaps refer back to the video and then look up those figures at puck drop and compare the two. That's something interesting I will be doing. That's for sure.
So I'm interested that there's only 491 bets on this Vegas Golden Knights Coyotes game. It could be that this line is just fresh and it's just come out.
It has to be. I feel like the Knights get bet a lot.
I feel like that too. The Golden Knights open -159. They've been bet up to -170. 52% of bettors and 59% of the money is on the Golden Knights. So really not a lot to talk about there as far as exposure. That's pretty much equilibrium. So onto the puck line where the juice has adjusted for the Coyotes, because you can see there it was +153, -174 the juice at open. It's now +153 at -171 on the Coyotes. So the line has pushed a little bit in favor of the Coyotes as the juice adjusted. 82% of bets and 75% of the money has been placed on the Coyotes. So just a tiny bit more exposure on the Coyotes puck line. But the line has moved on the money line in favor of the Vegas Golden Knights. So it could be that these opening lines, as far as the money line and puck line are concerned, didn't come out at the exact same time. But if I had to guess, the money line probably came out first. And that's the reason why we see what we see at this moment.
Yeah, it's kind of like they do the spread and then the money line like in reverse in the NBA, as we mentioned in the previous video. One interesting thing of note here is I think there's the handle ratio between money line and puck line is probably balancing this market. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
So there's probably, because since you got more money on the Vegas Knights, but at -170, it almost looks like exposure because 59% doesn't cover that bet. But then when you look at it, 75% of the money of the puck line on the Coyotes at -175, I feel like they're doing really well in this game here. What would be the worst results there? Okay, if the Knights win by 1, I don't think that's a very good result there, though. That's the only thing that's very interesting here. And with OU, I find that even more compelling. So maybe a Knights score of 3-2 and 2-1 are unlikely scores, considering they would both hit the under.
Well, I'll jump in, because if the Knights win by 1, that's actually a good result for the Coyotes puck line, which they don't want, because that's the most exposure that we see so far. So they want the Knights to win by 2 or more goals.
Yeah, I said what they don't want. I said what they don't want.
Okay.
But perhaps, hold on, though. There's 82% on the over, so they do want the under. So, but then maybe that is the most sorry, we get confused when we're doing a lot of tree of logic stuff. You know what I mean? A little bit of a flow chart, because you got to make one inference to another, and then we do get confused from time to time. So the result that they don't want is the Knights to win by 1. So that makes me think that perhaps the Knights winning by 2, less than 5 goals, is an exact score that is more likely to come. So a 3-1 could be in the cards for a Golden Knights more often than usual, considering the market effects. But we don't have the money percentage on the OU, unfortunately. But they are de-incentivizing it, so maybe there is more dollars per person put on the OU. Perhaps
I think that's safe
very
to say.
much so, considering. But this is a juice adjustment, because -107 on both sides is 214 points of juice, whereas -101, -11 is 212. So they did adjust and lose 2 points of commission on that, but they did adjust it in favor of the under, suggesting that 18% is perhaps putting up more than 50%, which would suggest a high sharp action on an under, which is congruent with what we have seen so far this season.
And then on to the final game of the night, the Colorado Avalanche traveling to Anaheim to take on the ex-Mighty Ducks. 870 bets so far, 10 p.m. Eastern time start. The Ducks opened as +185 on the money line. It's been bet down to +169. 50% of bettors and 56% of the money has helped push that line down in favor of the Ducks. And then let's take a look at the puck line. The puck line has also moved the juice in favor of the Ducks at least. +1.5 point dogs at home. -134 has been bet up to -163. 85% of bets have been placed on the Ducks, and 53% of the money has been placed on the Ducks. So the books are actually taking a little bit of exposure on the Avalanche puck line, but they are taking more exposure, I would have to guess, on the Anaheim Ducks money line.
Yeah. Because, like, think about it. It's 56% of the money, but 56% paying out 185 to 169 in that range, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you'd make that move, because it's dangerous. It is dangerous if you're not balanced, right? But I'm sure they know what they're doing. It is very interesting, and I guess even square bettors are thinking, oh, it's so easy for the Avalanche to win by 2, but that's never really the case in any sport. It's never easy to beat another team by 2 scores, no matter what the sport is. So that's perhaps where that reaction is. I feel like there's probably sharp action on the Ducks to win the game outright, and perhaps a pros versus Joes oscillation in this game, considering the using the futures as a good goalpost and the team strength and perceived team strength of the public of the Colorado Avalanche.
Well, what's interesting to me is that this has been one of the biggest line movements we've seen so far this year in this game, especially on the puck line. I can't remember a puck line spread juice moving this much. I'm curious if there might have been some goalie news in this game. Like, they might have released a line and then decided they were going to play a different goalie. I'm just quickly checking.
Is Jaguar out?
Jaguar's been out for a long time.
What about Guy Hebert?
Well, Philip Grubauer is in net, and Philip Grubauer is the starter in Colorado. Anaheim is still unsure, so there hasn't been any goalie news that I could see that would affect this, which I find interesting. But if Gibson plays, I think that might be a boost for Anaheim, but I believe that he didn't play in their last game, so I don't see why he wouldn't play in this game. Either way, don't listen to anything I just said. Do that research on your own to find out for sure. The OU for this game opened at 5.5, still at 5.5, but the juices moved heavily in favor of the under from -103 to -111. However, 66% of bets and 90% of the money has been put on the over. So we do have some heavy reverse juice movement in this game. But in fact, I know what you always like to talk about is that this 90% of the money might have come in with that juice at -102 on the over.
Yeah, it's very plausible that could have happened, right? Because you gotta remember what are like, okay, because think about it this way, squares are inelastic to price, more or less, right? To use an economics term, whereas sharps are very elastic to price. That's what they care about more than anything, right? Whereas sharps, they just want to get their side, right? So I mean, obviously sharps usually favor the over, and usually they favor picking one team or another because of storylines, right? Like, that's why the OU is a far less popular market. But it is plausible that they moved this over price down to -102, drastically changing the win rate you would need to be, and a dump of money came in on the over. That's always an option. And, perhaps there could be buyback on the under, and I would imagine that a benchmark price would have to be some plus money, like plus 110, because if the Sharps didn't like the under at -103, then there probably isn't value there. There's probably only value on the under at plus 5.5 goals under at like plus 110, or perhaps maybe -111, but at -6 goals. That's always an opportunity, or at least a way to think about it.
That's it for the NHL betting market video for January the 22nd. Hopefully you guys could use some of this information to help you out with your wagers for today's games.